Take 4. TPC 156, 11:37 a.m., August 9th, 2020, 75th anniversary of the Nagasaki bombing. I'm sick as shit. I can't exercise per doctor's order, so I'm foggy, but I'm going to go crazy if I don't do an episode. I have a week off work that I was not expecting to have off, so I don't have guests lined up. So we're just going to riff for an hour. 11:38, let's try to aim for 52 minutes, and at a clean 12:30. No topic, I don't know. But one thing I've been listening to recently is documentaries about SDI, the Strategic Defense Initiative under Reagan, which is, it's kind of weird that, for me at least, it's weird to me that I never read about it more. I don't have a guest. I can pull this microphone closer. It's kind of weird that I never read about it more, because I mean, it just seems kind of, it definitely seems right up my alley, right in my interest. But I just never did. I don't know. I think I always remember hearing about it, but I think I don't know how to word this. It was often described as a propaganda piece or a fear tactic. Yeah, almost like, why did we go to the moon? What was the real advantage of it? Sure, to show that our science was better, and thus our system of society, the organization in which we operate our entire economy, capitalism versus communism, is more effective than theirs. I get that. I get the real thing, though. That's great and all, but I mean, you don't need to win an argument about who has a better society, and we can just nuke the fuck out of them. Or, walls. You have two types of walls. You have walls on borders of capitalist countries where people try to get in, and then you have walls around communist countries where people try to get out. Follow the gradient. That defines everything. You don't listen to pundits. But I think I took SDI as always, like, it couldn't have actually been accurate, because I always heard it described as, it would have cost like $100 trillion. It was light years ahead of its time. It was more of like a scare tactic than anything. Do we have it? Do we not? You're going to call our bluff. I don't like not having a guest, because now I can see my image right in front of me, and I'm just an ugly motherfucker. But I've been listening to some documentaries about it, and I'm so foggy. But it is crazy, because we were actually kind of making it. We were kind of making it. I mean, I'd seen videos before of Sprint ABM, the Sprint anti-ballistic missile. That thing was insane. If I'm correct, it's 0 to Mach 10 in 5 seconds. And I know that sounds like, okay, that's bullshit. That's you're exaggerating. Look up these fucking videos, dude. The videos look like almost like a 1905 video, how they're kind of like sped up, like a bunch of women in hoop skirts and guys in top hats and like a 3-legged dog in Manhattan, and there's like a horse going around. But it's actually what the videos look sped up, but they're not. I mean, the missiles start to glow, and it's because they're going something like they're like 100 Gs. They're pulling like 100 Gs. But so I know that was for like the last second defense, and not defense of cities, because we realized that there's no such thing as civil defense. The population's fried. Shout out Garrett M. Graff Raven Rock. Good Lord Almighty, I am foggy, but I guess it seemed like it couldn't have been true, because we're still trying to like figure out lasers, right? I mean, not too long after 9/11, they had was it the YAL? What was that laser? That 747 based laser. 747 has obviously been used for different cargoes over the eras, from the proposed flying aircraft carrier to I think NASA had one with like a telescope to get above the atmosphere, but it was all fucked up because of the vibrations. Shout out Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. But I think it was the YAL. It was supposed to be an anti-ICBM. The entire fucking fuselage was filled with like capacitors or, I don't know, chemical batteries. I don't know shit about it. But that was in the 2000s. So the idea of SDI in the 80s, it definitely, I don't know which propaganda did I just digest one of the propagandas? It was SDI propaganda, and did I just digest the propaganda that it was propaganda? Does that make sense? You know, it's like you could say like the moon landing was propaganda against the Soviets, and then you could say that like we didn't actually go, and that's propaganda against the United. It's going to be a top tier episode. You can tell already. Woo. But it does seem that. So, but listening to this documentary, and they're interviewing the. So it was under Reagan. The Secretary of Defense was Caspar Weinberger. Reagan and Caspar Weinberger both passed away. But the general who oversaw SDI, or was in charge of it, was General James Abramson, who's still alive and is 88 years old and is complete active chairman of is chairman of a corporation I think called GOI. That was bought by someone, and then that was merged, and then that was bought. Just some fucking like shell game shit. But I don't think it was nefarious. I know this because I was trying to find him, and I've yet to hear back from him. Shout out James Abramson. But he talks about actually kind of just how like far along this thing was coming. It's just, for instance, one of the things that there was a problem with was like the coherent laser. And it's so weird hearing about this in the 80s because they're talking about, and this guy James Abramson, it's really weird because he has like an ASMR voice. So he's this guy overseeing this space-based laser program to shoot down fucking nukes to offset a global thermonuclear holocaust exchange. And he's sitting there and he's like, well, thank you for having me on your show. And so really what we're aiming for is some laser. It's oddly soothing, but he's talking about it. And there's obviously like the missile intercepts, the Missile Defense Agency hitting a bullet with a bullet. The last line of defense was Sprint. I don't think we use that anymore. I think there's one called THAAD, THAAD. I think there's the Patriot. I think there's like tiers. You know, boost, you get it, and when it's like doing its arc, you do it like reentry. Like the decoys, the multiple independent reentry vehicle decoys that can't survive reentry because they're just Mylar balloons. So we have all these different tiers of missile defense, but then, and it sounds like something you'd hear now in 2020, but here they're talking about it in 1984, is they're like, well, you know, you have these different tiers of missile defenses, but then, you know, at the final seconds before it released, so it's called a bus. A bus is what holds all the, the most advanced ICBMs, later days in the Cold War, when we just got really good at potentially killing everybody, were the ICBMs that would shoot up, and there was basically like a shotgun shell. Multiple independent reentry vehicles, MIRVs. And they would open up, and you'd have, I think, like up to 10 of them, and they'd be mixed in with a bunch of decoys too. So you're the victim, you're looking up, and you're seeing on your radar, you're seeing 20 or whatever. And these were insane because there'd be 10 multiple independent reentry vehicles. Each one, some of them they'd be up to 1 to like 9 megatons each. So you'd have like 10 of these. So it's like 90 megatons. 1 megaton is 300 times more powerful than the bomb that took out Nagasaki 75 years ago today. And then we'd have multiple of these missiles on a single sub, and then you'd have a fleet of subs. I mean, the multiplication just starts to get crazy. But so you want to take it out when it's boosting because there's a white hot exhaust plume, and you can track that easily, but you can't hit the plume because, per the general's words, hitting the plume is worthless. It's because it's just, I mean, it really is smoke. It's an analogy of the Soviet Union, smoke and mirrors, but it really is smoke. So you want to hit the body, but that's obviously the most ideal spot, but you also got to have missiles nearby. All right. So that's the boost phase, and I'm butchering this, and then up when the bus comes off of the boost phase, but then it does that sort of like apex, it's still all together. So, you know, it's like when you're playing like a video game, and there's like and you see like Russian, you're defending some fort, and you see like a Jeep or whatever, and it's, think of like Halo or something, and you got the I don't even, what the fuck was the name of the truck? What was the name of the Warthog? Was that it? Yeah, whatever. But you have three guys on one thing and it's coming towards you. You always want to hit that with a rocket because it's one hit, 3 kills. Once it stops and they spread, it's like killing a spider versus like squishing a spider and like a bunch of baby spiders come out. So you want to kill the bus while it's still has everything. Because once it opens up, it's just it's just 20 times harder. So do you want to hit a bullet with a bullet, or do you want to hit all the shotgun shell fragments with another shotgun shell fragment? So to do that, you definitely want to hit the body or the bus. The point of bringing this all back around is they were talking about directed energy weapons, but they said it so nonchalantly. So you want to hit it during the boost phase, you want to hit at the missile body, you don't want to hit the plume, or you could hit the bus. Well, it's still at the apex, and if you really can't get it in the final seconds, well, then you would use a directed energy weapon because that goes at the speed of light, and it just kind of like, and then they go into the next thing, and there's another montage, and then a commercial break, and some badass 80s commercials. We are McDonnell Douglas, but it was like, what? A directed energy weapon? Like, I thought we weren't there now. So who knows? Maybe it was. Maybe I'm a perfect example of the power of propaganda. Maybe that wasn't real at all, but idiots like me thought it was. But another thing they talked about was they were called like garages, like garage. Like, I'm above my parents' garage, 30 years old. Hope I look back at this video one day and laugh. Yeah. But they said, as General James Abramson said, there's a lot of like garages, and these garages would each hold missiles, and you'd orbit these possibly in like the thousands of garages. But I thought it was really interesting that the garages were, excuse me, the garages were, they had rockets in them, but they were tiny. They said they were pretty much I would imagine you'd have to have some different specs for space-based, but they said they were the same missiles that you put on fighter jets for air-to-air, so like a Sidewinder or like a Phoenix missile. And I guess that makes sense, because if it's already up in orbit, the vast majority of the energy. This is why we exercise before podcasts, because I'm foggy. The vast majority is it delta V? The vast majority of the energy you need is to get it out of the gravity well and into orbit. But once you're already up there, if you just have this like almost like a SAM site up in orbit. Yeah, you just need to hit, because if you're hitting the missile body, not the MIRV, but just the lifting body, I guess it doesn't really matter what you hit it with, right? Because one, think about, we always hear about like space debris, like a speck. Is it the right word? A fleck? A flake? Holy Jesus! The exercise, kids. But they're traveling at like 17,000 miles an hour, and one of those can like punch a hole through a spaceship. So you really just gotta hit the thing, and not only that. So not only is your projectile probably already enough, just an air-to-air missile. It doesn't need to be the size of a Titan II, because it's already in orbit. And 90% of a rocket is just the fuel getting it up there, the tyranny of the fuel equation. So you're already up there with a rocket, 17,000 miles an hour. So it doesn't need to be a lot. A third. So one, you're already up there. Two, you're already going 17,000 miles an hour. So let momentum do the work, baby. Momentum equals mass times velocity. Three, the actual skin of a rocket, and I didn't know this until like last year. The actual, like, in my mind, I just imagine them like, I don't know why I imagine that they're just like as sturdy as like a fucking like tank. I just imagine like a thick armored wall. No, like maybe like an actually, and I think no, because you just want something to hold the fuel, and then you drop it off at stages. But the fuel itself, I think it was Elon Musk or Bezos, or maybe it's just any rocket. Apparently like a rocket couldn't even stand under its own weight. is pressurized and full of fuel, but the skin really is almost like balloon-like. I mean, like tinfoil. Like, take a pin and just you go right through, because you want the least amount of fuel possible. So it really is. It's like, if you took the top off this water bottle and then you stood on it, it would just crumble. But you leave the top on and it's pressurized, right? Squeeze it, don't squeeze it. Squeeze it, yeah. And that's fine if it's just gonna hold the fuel. But if you're up there and you hit this fucker with a pin, I mean, it's not hitting like, the hard plastic of a remote. You're just hitting. I've had on guys from NASA. I'm sure if they're watching this video, they're just like, you dumb fuck. But, so one, you're in orbit, so you don't need to expend all the energy to get up there, so you could have a tiny rocket. Two, the rocket can be tiny because it's already going 17,000 miles an hour. So think of the speck of paint. Flake of paint. Jesus Christ. Three, the actual thing you're trying to hit it's very fragile. And four, you're in a near vacuum. I guess if you're right above the atmosphere, it's a gradient of atmosphere, but you're above like 99% of the atmosphere. So there's negligible drag. It's like there's no such thing as no gravity. Nowhere in the universe is there no gravity. Gravity exists. Gravity exerts force over an infinite distance, but it's related to the square of the distance from the center of the mass. But it's so there's no drag or anything. So think about a rocket and think about how much power it needs. Think about how much of that thrust. One, it's trying to get out of the gravity well of Earth. But two, it's also going again. Granted, it's going straight up. Well, I don't know, it really kind of turns azimuthal, but it's still going through a ton of atmosphere. It's kind of like those like hypersonic sleds that they'll do out in like the like White Sands, I think. They'll put them because they're just putting sideways on a fucking rail, and they just let these fuckers rip, and they'll get going hypersonic in like 3 seconds. It's insane. But I remember seeing someone explain it, and they're like, because you're always shooting rockets up. Like, if you just put a rocket sideways with doesn't have to fight gravity, you can put all that energy into just speed. Okay, so let's take a normal rocket you shoot up and then put it on a sled and you go sideways. Jack that fucker up. Now what happens if you can take that same sideways motion, but it doesn't matter because you're up in space, so the effect is the same. You're not fighting the vertical down of gravity. I did take physics. Be amazed. The vertical down of gravity, Tommy 2020, is but it's still that same effect if you're just not fighting that massive pulling force. And now imagine you take that rocket straight up versus rocket on the sled. The sled's much faster. Now imagine taking that sled and putting it in a vacuum, so there's no air resistance or negligible air resistance. Now I was thinking about that yesterday. What is the max speed? If you were to take a Phoenix missile, some AMRAAM, what if you just took it out into space and just shot it? Not shooting away from Earth or at the sun. No gravity. Just imagine you just out in space and shoot. I wonder what is the maximum speed that it would get. I mean, it would reach it and then it would stay there. And that's the beauty of space but so you're up there. You just take like a Phoenix missile or something. I don't even know if that's the right term. I think those are just the sensors. But you just take an air-to-air missile and just shoot it. And so now SDI kind of makes a lot more sense. So the 4 things. 1, you don't need all that fuel because you're already up there. So you're out of the gravity well. 2, a flake of paint can be damaging because it's going 17,000 miles an hour. Okay. 3, the skin of the missile is very, very thin and fragile. And 4, even if even if points 2 and 3 weren't applicable, let's say it did need to be very powerful, a simple air-to-air missile, not fighting gravity and not fighting air resistance, that thing is going to get cooking fast. I mean, I think they said in the video it would be something like, oh, I don't even remember. But, I mean, it doesn't do any justice. Insanely fast. So that actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, that actually makes a lot of sense. Now, can you ward off a general nuclear exchange? Or was the boob attack bolt out of the blue? I don't know, man. I mean, you got 1,000 ICBMs going up at once. I don't know if that would work. But I mean, I definitely think it seems closer to reality. You just put a fucking, like a SAM site in orbit. Yeah. I mean, why not? Especially if you can kind of be like hugging the atmosphere and then you see these come up, these ICBMs come up. If you can look at it from a way that you're not looking at them with Earth as the background, but if you're looking up at them with space as the background, I mean, Jesus, I mean, talk about a temperature differential. Even if the rocket isn't burning anymore, even if there's no plume anymore, the friction on that thing is still going to be toasty. And even if it wasn't toasty, even if it was just fucking room temperature, that's still going to contrast the fuck out of a black space in the background, right? But it is cooking. So that's got to make it easier. Yeah. It actually... It seems very doable. I mean, it would money, but I mean, under Reagan and that defense buildup, money were fun tickets. But yeah, that actually seems really possible. Put up thousands of them, thousands of the garages. That would work. Yeah, I think that would work. The other idea was that they were going to have, and now this is the point where I see where it kind of strays into a little insanity, was railguns. Actually, I don't know. Think about railguns now. Is it BAE Systems that's making it? General Atomics, General Dynamics? 30 more minutes. I can do this. I think they're doing that now with railguns. But this documentary starts with them shooting a railgun in like 84. But I mean, I think all the same things apply. Are we shooting it on Earth? And are we shooting it at... Okay, yeah. Maybe the railguns take so long to develop because what we're aiming for, no pun intended, is a railgun that works on Earth, shooting massive shells at fucking naval destroyers with feet of steel. Okay. Air resistance, okay. Versus bring it right back around to the garages of missiles. You're in space. It doesn't need to be big at all. It can be a fucking BB. No air resistance. So, but I think the primary thing is not even air resist. Is none of that. I think it's just small, right? Because I think we figured out railguns a while ago, and that's based on nothing. I am basing that on zero facts. I know the Nazis wanted to design a railgun, which is insane, but well, I don't know. If we had it in the 80s, we did a test fire. That is a fact. There was like a toast, and they were like taking out nuclear weapons. But it's weird because at the beginning of that video, the guy that says I'd like to make a toast to this railgun taking out nuclear weapons in the future, he has the same exact voice of the guy who, if you watch the Ivy Mike hydrogen bomb test, the very first hydrogen bomb, what the fuck is the name of the ship he's on? Oh, god damn it. We are on the... damn it. But it's just like your 50s... I mean, it looks like it could be in the Sandlot. He is like, hello, I'd like to welcome you here. And if you look just over there, we could be part of the thermonuclear age. Now we're going to have our goggles on. It's almost like a walk-in type guy. We are on the... Fuck, what's the name of that video? What's the name of that ship? God damn it. I'm going to have to look that up. But it's weird because, yeah, that guy... Fuck it. I think I can play it, right? I don't think I'll get yanked. Ivy Mike.
By the time it got up into the upper... the super reflectors.
Wait. Yeah.
Momentous. Welcome aboard the USS Estes. You have a grandstand seat here to one of the most momentous events in the history of science. In less than a minute, you will see the most powerful explosion ever witnessed by human eyes. The blast will come out of the horizon just about there. And this is the significance of the moment. This is the first full-scale test of a hydrogen device. If the reaction goes, we're in the thermonuclear era.
Okay.
History was last pages
now,
even now. Engineers, but a few.
And then there's the guy. Fuck.
Pages even. It's built in response to President.
You might be able to get a good shot. Go right down through the.
Do you hear it?
Watch out!
The device, 8 miles an hour. Age.
Warfare, and perhaps even someday eliminate the threat of nuclear destruction.
In Moscow.
And let's just hope that this tool can someday be used to tame warfare, and perhaps even someday eliminate.
Do you not hear it? The USS Estes. The explosion will come from right over there. I don't know. I heard it. Point being, sorry for that. I don't think that's going to be the thing that keeps this channel from getting monetized. And if it is, fuck it. It was worth it. SDI, baby. But if he's talking about they're doing railguns then yeah. So the point is we had it figured out. But the problem, because I remember reading in Popular Mechanics, or was it Popular Science, when I was in high school, so sometime between 2005 and 2009. God damn it, I remember those fucking articles said cancer would be cured by 2020. Bastards. Flying through their fucking teeth. 2015 earliest, 2020 for sure. 2020, banning TikTok. Woo! That's where we are. Yeah. I remember I got a date with this super hot girl when I lived in Maine, and I was really nervous about going on it, but I was a new kid, and no one had ever gone on a date with this girl before, and I wanted to go on a date with her to sort of like get some street cred. And I remember I used to listen to Flashing Lights by Kanye, and that would psych me up to not be a pussy. Fuck yeah. I think we made out. It was weird. I slipped on some snow and fell. Looked like a real boss. Point being, Kanye, 2007, now running for president. That's where we are. Railguns. Jesus Christ. Railguns. So it seems that we had it figured out. But yeah, Popular Mechanics. So I remember it was saying that it was possible, but there was some like Goldilocks zone almost. It was like we have to get to 64 megajoules or something. And it was like, so it wasn't a matter of like, can we do it? It's just like when we do it. Well, yeah, not if, but when. Almost kind of like what the fuck was that noise? Almost like A-bomb. So once the nuclear fission was discovered, that it was possible, and was the Chicago pile, Enrico Fermi, and the Nazis had their weird heavy water plants with all those like fucking weird like lead cubes, or was it uranium cubes? The neutron regulators. Once it became understood that it was possible, it was when, not if, right? That's why Leo Szilard went to, no, he didn't go to FDR. Leo Szilard wanted to warn FDR, but he definitely couldn't get close to, he just wasn't basically didn't have clout. But Leo Szilard, was it Leo Szilard? Was it Leo Szilard was the driver? No. Leo Szilard went to meet with his friend Albert Einstein, and that man's name, Albert Einstein. but really went to meet Albert Einstein, wrote a letter and had Einstein, I think, sign off on it, or maybe had Einstein write it. But because of that was able to go to FDR. And it's weird because when Leo Szilard went to meet with Einstein, I want to say it was on Long Island. It's weird. It's really weird how the thing kind of aligned, because who was driving Leo Szilard? Edward fucking Teller, right? Maybe it was Ed Teller was being driven by Leo. I think it was Ed Teller was driving Leo Szilard, because Leo Szilard didn't have a car. Leo Szilard was like this posh. He lived in like hotel lobbies. Sounds like my kind of guy, dude. But yeah, what a weird thing. Leo Szilard, driven by Ed Teller, to go see Einstein, to go write a letter to FDR to warn about Hitler. What a fucking star-studded cast. And then weird again, yeah. The weird interaction of Edward Teller and cars. Edward Teller driving a car to bring Leo Szilard to Einstein to write a letter to FDR about Hitler. And then 40-something years later, maybe 50 years later? Because I think the letter was written in 39. Maybe it was 40. Yeah, 50 years later, Ed Teller giving a speech at a school, at a campus, reading an article about a rocket-powered car. And on the front page of the article, Bob Lazar. Edward Teller and cars. I'd love to see a Disney or Pixar Cars movie with Edward Teller, though. Don't know how the fuck we got A-bombs once it's possible. Now that we know it's possible, it will be done. That was the letter written to FDR. Therefore, we need to make a plan for a bomb now, because it's not some hidden esoteric knowledge. It can be done. Can you just get all the fissile material? How do you do it? Do you do a gun type versus implosion? Shout out FDR. FDR didn't give a fuck. Truman, I mean, I absolutely understand Truman's hesitance to drop the bomb 75 years ago today, and 75 years, 3 days. But it was funny because funny, relative. Truman was very like, do we do this? Do we not? And he was finally kind of pushed towards it by Leslie Groves, who said, if you don't drop it, Mr. Truman, you need to start preparing your impeachment speech for next year when the war ends, after 1 million U.S. GIs die. You have to, you need to give your speech to the American people when they impeach you for finding out that you had a weapon that you didn't use. And that's in 45, after this whole thing is played out. FDR didn't give a fuck, and this was in like 40 or 41. So with none of this had played out yet, and FDR was, I think Bill O'Reilly mentions it in Killing the Rising Sun, which is a book about the war in the Pacific, but is also, unintentionally, I think, probably one of the best books on the A-bomb. I've really got to go to the bathroom. So, you know what I can do? I think I can just, play... I'll just play one of my shitty podcasts to fill the air while I go pee.
No, in your book, it talks about
Here we go.
how when they were looking for what would become the U-2, is they had all these entry or these contract, I guess, bids between 3 different companies. But then you said, I don't know why I was trying to explain this to you. I'm like, wait, you wrote the book. But then there was another bid from someone an unsolicited bid, and it was like it wasn't Clarence, but it was one of the guys from Lockheed, and apparently there's some I guess red hot guy named Clarence, and he said he can do it better. But I don't know why. That doesn't really have anything to do with the Korean War we were going to talk about. But that made me laugh out loud. It was just like unsolicited, and I was like, as soon as it said unsolicited, I was like, I bet it's going to be Clarence Johnson. And they're like, it's from a small company called Lockheed, but back when it was like Lockheed Marietta. I was like, I knew it. It was just unsolicited. But
it's kind of cool you could do that back in the day, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They put out, they still sort of do, but there's not independent companies that can pull off a multi-billion-dollar project.
Oh yeah.
These days.
Oh yeah.
Right, but back then, yeah, they're like, Lockheed was. They obviously.
We are back. I need to record my own elevator music. But yeah, Bill O'Reilly, FDR. Yeah, FDR didn't give a fuck. He was getting ready to drop that thing like years prior. He was just so. I mean, I know people on the right kind of look at FDR. Oh, he was a socialist. He kept the Great Depression going on. Blah 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 blah. Did FDR didn't give a fuck. FDR not only did he pull together. Excuse me. Not only did he bail out the UK, and then go in there and tell Eisenhower to go fuck shit up, send off MacArthur and Patton just like some wild dogs to go kill some Nazi fuckers. He was for the A-bomb years before it was even ready. To me, I know a lot of people don't like that, and hey, agree to disagree. We can argue, and that's a beautiful thing about this nation is that we have the freedom to argue that, and we can question government motives. And because of that, without being beheaded or thrown in a re-education camp, and because of that, I would argue that the use of the atomic bomb was good because it preserved the system that allows you to question the use of the atomic bomb. I'll die on that hill. And you don't have to. And again, another beautiful thing about this country. So, yeah, but FDR didn't give a fuck. FDR was like, drop it. I don't care. I don't care. There will be civilian deaths. I don't care. It's just fucking... Again, people shit on him because he's a Democrat, so he's a socialist, but dude was like one of the OG, like, America first. He didn't give a fuck. He was like, drop it now. Drop it yesterday. I don't give a fuck. God damn, how the fuck do we get off into these weeds? Railguns. Railguns. So if it's possible, we know it's not if, but when. So it seems like that's how the railgun was. So if we got to get to the sweet spot of 64 megajoules at least, I wonder what the upper speed limit of railguns are. But yeah. Let's finish this thought. So if it's possible, and the limiting factor is enough energy, without it being destroyed. Also, I mean, I imagine you can just crank the energy up. I mean, fuck, I barely got past physics, but something to do with amps and watts and I don't know. Sherlock Holmes is to fire the shell fast enough, or a big enough shell, because if it's going Mach 7, you don't even need to have an explosive charge in there. You just use the kinetic energy of the warhead. But if you're going up in space, yeah, you don't need a huge shell. You're not going against a battleship. Fuck, you could just shoot like a shotgun shell. Imagine an electromagnetic shotgun. That would be fucking nuts. So I think what they wanted in space was, so in addition to, so you've got the last minute interceptor, the Sprint ABM, and those, it's kind of funny that like we put our missile interceptors, we didn't put them around cities because we knew they were fucked. They might hit one or two, but you're not going to get the other 90. So what we did do, and I think it was Nixon that said, the primary goal is to prevent death. And the primary way to prevent death is to guarantee death to them in a thermonuclear exchange, mutual assured destruction. And that's where the whole decentralization of nuclear weapons comes from. That's the basis, part of the basis of Dr. Strangelove. Wing attack plan R, well, the idea was to, in the event of a Soviet decapitation strike, that anyone could die forever. Blah, blah. Yeah. You can't take pictures. We're in the war room. But Mandrake. But so that's what I mean. That's where that strategic plan comes into play. But that's also where you want to have them everywhere. Nuclear subs, I would imagine, are like the primary enforcer of that. So now it's not even like, maybe if we wipe out all of them real quick, they won't be able to get us. It's no matter what, something somewhere is going to launch back. And that not insurance, I was going to say like Ensure, E-N-S-U-E, not sponsored by Ensure. It ensures that you are fucked no matter what. Even if you get off 99% of your nukes or even if we take out 99%, 1% is still going to come through. And that's going to fuck us up eternally. Because 1% of the nukes coming in are thousands of times more powerful than the one in Hiroshima. And, 1% of 70,000 nukes coming. I can't do math. 70,000 divided by 100. Fuck. 70,000 divided. Jesus Christ. What's 700 times 10? 7,000. What's 700 times 100? All right, so let's say 700 nukes still get through. You take out 99%. If you have 700 nukes coming through, and each one is, say, on a conservative estimate, a megaton, that's still 700 megatons. I mean, Ivy Mike was 15. No, Ivy Mike was, I think, 5 or 10. Castle Bravo was 15. Ivy Mike had more explosive power than everything detonated in World War II, including the A-bombs. 700 megatons, even if that's 1% getting through, which is beyond success. If you could wipe out 99% of incoming missiles, if 1% came through at 700 megatons, you're still fucked. And there's the beauty in that, is even if you have a 99% success rate, which in anything else is amazing, sales, grades, investments, whatever, good days, that doesn't do shit. 99.9% still wouldn't do shit. You have to get 100%, and we knew that wouldn't be possible because Curtis LeMay said a bomber will always get through. You can throw 1,000 B-29s at a city. You could take out 950 of them, but 50 are still going to get through. Now imagine if those are carrying nukes instead of fire bombs or just dumb bombs. It doesn't matter. So the whole nuclear deterrence comes from, no matter what, we were going to have some ready to fire, right? How the fuck did I get on this? I don't remember. I'm so fucking tired. Oh, yeah. Shooting shit at incoming missiles. Whatever. Fuck it. 10 more minutes. Let's do this. Finish strong. Finish the drill. So if you had, the Sprint ABM missiles, those were around, deterrence. We couldn't save the cities, so what we did do instead is we put them around our missile sites, our land-based missile sites, the ICBMs, the silos all across the Midwest and Montana, which I thought was kind of funny. It's I was watching the ending of Far Cry 5 the other day, which is a great game. Playing it right now, actually, while listening to Stealth War by Brigadier General Robert Spalding. At the end, when the spoiler alert, turn off now if you haven't played Far Cry 5. Spoiler alert. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Spoiler alert. So at the end, when you arrest Joseph Seed and the H bombs start going off, some of the comments are like, not really realistic because, like, really 3 H bombs in a nothing named county in Montana. Yeah, sure. But reality is, not only are there that many nukes, that's how many that were going to be going off everywhere. Specifically Montana and the Midwest, because it's called by I think it was Strategic Air Command. I think the upper echelon used to call it. They called the Midwest the ICBM sponge because the Soviets would have to use so many to take out our silos. And we spaced them so far apart that you'd have to at least get 1 for 1. You couldn't do these multi-kills. So they used to call the Midwest the ICBM. It still is the ICBM sponge. That's the argument that Eric Schlosser makes at the end of Command and Control. Is like we look back and we're like, man, remember the days of the bomb and the scare that we were going to die in a fire and duck and cover? He's like, that never ended. Like, they're all still there. Sure, reduced in number. But as we just talked about, even if you take out 99%, that 1% is still a hellscape that you can't imagine. So they're still there. And I think that he ends the book with, like, they're there and they work. Describes it as like a gun cocked, pointed at the sky. So we were gonna put the Sprint ABM and the other interceptor. I think Spartan. There was another one called HOE, HOE, which is fucking hilarious. But we put these around our silos so that sure, no really lives to be saved, but if you put them around the silos and just thus ensure that you won't be able to take out our second strike or primary strike capability, you may look at that as, oh, how evil. We wouldn't protect our cities. Instead, we protect our silos. By protecting our silos, you are preventing a shot from ever being fired, period. So if you have the Sprint ABM, you have the Spartan, you have the garages, and then railguns, I mean, they had like different weight. So you have these different, I guess, bubbles, tiers of missile defense, and then you have the garages in space. The other thing was railguns. They were going to shoot these things, they said, about the size of hockey pucks. It's something insane. It was something insane. It was like something like 14,000 kilometers an hour. Sorry, 14 kilometers a second. That's what it was. It was 14 kilometers a second. What's the math on that? So 14 kilometers a second. Yeah, it's 50,400 kilometers an hour. What is kilometers an hour? 2 miles per hour. So 14 kilometers a second times 3,600 is 50,400 kilometers per hour. 50,400 kilometers an hour is 31,317 miles. 31,317. Now miles per hour to Mach. Let's see what that is. Mach 40. Jesus Christ. So, yeah. Have some Mach 40 hockey pucks up there. Wheel snipe Sally, boys. You can CrossFit, you can fuck off. Go kick rocks. You're at Taylor Swift lyrics and birthday cars. Your esthetician quaff that for you. Nice execution. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe if you have hockey pucks, garages, Sprint, Spartan, Patriot, and then perhaps the most crazy is if all of that doesn't work, and then you wheel in the directed energy, the DEW weapons, DEW, directed energy weapon. Those are insane. Was it would Abramson describe it as was it the free electron laser? That's insane because like what we were gonna do with them is you had to keep it a coherent laser, which if I can remember from science. Oh yeah, I took science. Chemistry, physics, maybe I'm just regurgitating what I saw in the video. If you keep it coherent, not spread out, it's much more powerful. It's like a shotgun. Shotgun, big spread, not a lot of power per spot. Sniper, sharp, kind of like a shape charge. Imagine a shape charge sniper bullet. That would be insane. So we could do this, but the problem is because the atmosphere, it would kind of refract it like whatever per second wavelength frequency. I don't fucking know. It would refract and it wouldn't work as well. So what we had to do was shoot the laser. And then the mirror and that was the other thing, is we're going to have these lasers, but then we're going to have these mirrors in space that would bounce the laser around and be able to wipe shit out. But because it was so fucked up, you had to have a mirror that could deform to correct the kind of like context. But because it's 1,000 times a second that it had to be corrected, the mirror itself had an aluminum like micron etching on it with all these piezoelectric pushers and drivers, and it would flex the mirror 1,000 times a second to correct the laser hitting it so that it would, I guess, be weaponized again. A deformative mirror, purposely deformative, actively deforming 1,000 times a second in fucking orbit. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see where people didn't think it was possible. To me, there's like two conclusions. It's like, that's so insane that wouldn't be possible. And the other part of me is like, that's so fucking insane that we might have done it. Like, we might have done it. And are you really gonna fuck around and find out? You gonna fire your nukes and have them blown out of the sky and then just wait for thermonuclear death? But there was one guy at the beginning of the documentary, not the USS Estes look-alike doppelganger, but there was another guy, because they're going through all these, they're like Oak Ridge, Lawrence Livermore, and they're talking about this and how it can be done given enough money. There's another one called the High Frontier program where they were just going to shoot nukes at the nukes. There's meme material. But there's one guy in full beautiful 80s hair and mustache, and he goes, I don't think it would work. He goes, I think it's an attempt at a technical solution to a much deeper problem, like a philosophical problem, that we shouldn't be firing these nukes at all. Because he said, what? He goes, sure, SDI, great, but what if, he goes, if I'm the Soviets, I'm just putting like 100 megaton H-bomb in a cargo ship and just bringing it right near a port. SDI doesn't do shit. And yeah, so Paul Whitcomb on tomorrow. We're going to talk about SDI. Paul's going to be angry at me for talking about SDI today. Paul, I'm fucking sorry. I'm exhausted. I feel like shit. My brain is like the directed energy weapon going through the atmosphere. It's being distorted 1,000 times a second. But unfortunately, Paul, if you were here, you would be my mirror that actively deformed by laser to fix it back. Yeah. So 12:29 p.m. Eastern time. I did it. Did what I said what I was gonna do. I'm gonna keep listening to this book. A couple neat guests this week. Stay tuned. Hopefully I don't have the Rona. If you guys like this podcast, please check out the Patreon. You can give $1 an episode. That would be more than fucking amazing. That will be in the top comment, sticky, and it will be in the description. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. I thoroughly enjoy it. I love listening to audiobooks. I love talking with them to people. And hope you guys enjoy it. And awful lot of negativity in the world out there right now. Be happy. Be positive. Easier said than done. You ever had a sunburn? Do you not have a sunburn right now? Be happy about that. You don't have a sunburn right now. That's all I got. I am going to keep listening to Stealth War by Brigadier General Robert Spaulding for the third time, because I like it that much. Not being sarcastic, I like it that much. It's a fucking great book. Check it out. Alright, guys. Stay safe. Stay sexy. Big dick energy. Peace.